YouTube? How you feeling? How you living? What's good? It's your girl Francine. Today is Thursday, and today we're talking about another kind of dispelling the myths video about the fact that people think that everybody in jail is a criminal. They've all committed crimes. Every single person that is in jail or prison is a criminal. Point blank, period. There is no excusing it. Every single person. And I've gotten into plenty of discussions with people, sometimes arguments about this situation, because I find it to be very interesting that a lot of people don't really know how the criminal justice system works, and a lot of people don't really understand that being in jail doesn't always mean that you're a quote-unquote criminal. And so I feel like that is something that we should probably talk about and something that we should probably have more understanding about. So that's why I made this video. Just like yesterday's video about reverse racism and Tuesday's video is about black on black crime. These are things that I think that we all should talk about, because I think as a society we kind of have a misunderstanding and miseducation about certain things, because we don't really talk about them, this being one of the biggest ones. I'm not going to say how long or short this video is going to be. If you notice from the last two videos, they've been pretty long. I'm going to try to keep it short. I'm trying not to ramble on too long, but this is something that I am actually very passionate about, so sit tight. Let's get into it. So I'm going to give you 3 main reasons how innocent people end up in jail. And I'm going to give you 3 more at the end that I'm not going to go too much in detail about, but I think they're also important to mention because they are very important. One of the biggest, actually the biggest way that people who have not been convicted of a crime or maybe innocent of a crime end up in jail is cash bail. Now, if you don't know what the cash bail system is, apparently America is one of the only countries in the world that has a cash bail system that is in conjunction with private companies that are bail bondsmen. The way bail works, that bail is essentially the amount of money you have to pay to the court to promise that you're going to come back, right? So if you give them the money and you come back to court and you go through your hearings, you get your money back. That's how it goes. But the thing about bail is usually a large lump sum of money that you don't really have. I mean, even like for me, a person who makes okay money, I don't have enough money to bail myself out of prison if I ended up in jail for whatever reason. And so most people have to go to what's called a bail bondsman, and they're a private company that takes about 10 to 15% of what the bail is. You have to pay to them. And then they use either your car, your house, jewelry, something as a collateral for the rest of the money. And if you don't go to court, if you don't pay, you don't get that money back. Period. And that 10 to 15% is non-refundable. That's 100% for them. So instead of paying the full amount to the court, you pay them 10%. They keep that 10%. And then they have your car, your house, or whatever on collateral for the rest of the money, just in case you don't go to court. Right? So how did this start? How did cash bail start? Well, cash bail is essentially to make sure, like I said, you go to court. And back in the 1980s, when crime was kind of on a rise, and I talked about that in the Tuesday video, that crime was at its highest in the 80s and the 90s. When crime was on the rise, they passed what was called the Bail Reform Act of 1984. And that essentially allowed judges to have discretion when it came to people that they believed were flight risks and people they believed were a danger to society and public safety. And so because it gave judges this kind of discretion as to how they could, decide how much or how little they want to give you in regards to bail, because originally it was based on the charge. Now judges have all the discretion in the world, so they can make it higher, they can make it lower, or they can say, you know what, just come back. We think that you're trustworthy enough to just come back. We don't have to make you pay a cash bill to get to make sure you come back to jail, come back to court. And so with this, a lot of times, because judges have such high discretion, there ends up being a lot of people who get disproportionately affected by bail. Now, granted, let's take into consideration, first of all, that most people, especially working poor, people of low income, they don't have this money, period. So they're more than likely either going to have to go through a cash bondsman, somehow bring up that 10% of what their bail is, or they're going to have to sit in jail until they have a court case. And the thing about staying in jail, the thing about sitting in jail, is that you're sitting in jail and not getting bailed out actually has an adverse effect on whether or not you win your case, because it's been proven through a study that people who are sitting in court instead of binding out have a 4 times more likely chance of ended up getting convicted of their crime, whether they're guilty or not. Because apparently it looks bad on you if you can't bail yourself out of prison. I don't understand how that works, but hey, that's what the courts apparently have done based on statistics. Now, it has been shown through statistics that 70% of the people in jail right now are pretrial detainees due to cash bail. That's more than half of the people in jail right now are people who haven't even been convicted of a crime. That's ridiculous to me. Like, that's over 500,000 people in jail right now who have not gone through any trials, have not gone through any hearings, have not been found guilty or not guilty, just sitting in jail. And of course, when statistics were done, and this was out of Philly, so this is my home state. Philly, they did a study from University of Pittsburgh that found that in 2016 in Philadelphia, Black defendants were more likely to have their bail amounts hold them in jail for up to 2 weeks. So the bail was so high that they couldn't get bailed out for 2 weeks at a time. Also in Philly in 2008 to 2013, 40% of the people who had bail set at $500 or less could not afford to pay their bail for at least 3 days. $500. That's, I mean, to you, that may not sound like a lot of money, but to somebody who just suddenly has to get that money up to get somebody out. And let me reiterate again, this is just being arrested. Now, we live in a society where you're innocent until proven guilty. These people have not had a trial. They have not gone in front of a judge. They just have to go to jail because they don't have the money to get themselves out. This essentially is criminalizing poverty, and it disproportionately affects people of color. Obviously, right? Because unfortunately, like I said in the Tuesday video, we're more likely to get arrested, we're more likely to get pulled over, we're more likely to have police interact with us and put us in jail, and then we have to sit there and wait because we don't have the money to bail ourselves out. And again, we're the ones who get affected. So that's the first one, the first issue that kind of allows people who are not, who have not been found guilty, who may be innocent, to be in jail and to end up in jail for long periods of time. One example that I wanted to give, and this was an example that this story broke my heart when I found out about it. It's about a man named Khalif Broder out of New York. He was in jail for 3 years. 3 years because he was presumed to have stolen someone's backpack. He'd been in solitary confinement for most of the time he was in jail. And he got released because he was innocent. And then he killed himself after leaving jail because he spent so much time in solitary confinement and messed with his mental health so much that he killed himself. And he was innocent. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is something that you're playing with people's lives at this point. And also, this man was innocent. He spent 3 years in jail. Ridiculous. So that's number one, cash bail. Let's get into the second one. Okay. So we've gone past people who have just been detained, have been arrested. Let's look at people who have been wrongfully convicted. They've been through the trial. They've been through everything. They had the jury rule, and they got convicted of a crime. But they're innocent. Well, the leading cause of people being wrongfully convicted of a crime is eyewitness testimonies. Now, let's be real. Eyewitness testimonies have, from time to time again, if you watch any TV show, if you watch any movie about crime, there's always some doubt in eyewitness testimonies. And that's not anything against people who come out and say that they want to say that, they were there and they know what happens, or the victim who's had it happen to them. It's not always malice that allows people to end up wrongfully identifying someone. They're not doing it out of malice. They're not doing it because they want to put somebody innocent in jail. They a lot of times get persuaded by the police. And even then, it's not 100% malice from the police. I'm going to try my best not to seem like I'm always against the police, even though, but a lot of times people get suggestions from police. They get, they already have this person that they've either arrested or they believe is a suspect, and they will kind of implant memories into people's heads. Like, they do any interrogation with the eyewitness. Hey, what do you remember? Do you remember, was he black? Was he tall? Was he skinny? Was he fat? Like, what was he? And that can be a leading question. Most lawyers know they don't really like you giving leading questions, because leading questions will make people think that you're trying to tell them something that they need to say that is not coming straight from them. Okay? And that's not good, because a lot of times people they want to help the situation. They want to help the investigation, and they will just tell you what you want to hear. Unfortunately, that happens a lot, because when we look at the DNA, people who were exonerated by DNA from the Innocence Project, 252 out of 367 cases were exonerated, which means that they were found to be not guilty from DNA samples, but they were put in jail because of eyewitness testimony. That's 69%. So that happens a lot, and most of the time, and a lot of the times, it comes from leading questions from the police, or it can come from social media or the media in general. They may see such and such got arrested for this crime that I witnessed. Hey, maybe he is the guy that was there. Because the thing about human memory is that it's very fragile. It's very fleeting. It's very faulty. And a lot of times it deteriorates over time. And each attempt to recall it alters it, right? So try to remember what you did 3 years ago, right? Even on a specific date. I try to remember what I did 3 years ago on my birthday. Let's say that. Even though it's a memorable day, I did something special for my birthday. I can't tell you what everybody was wearing. I can't tell you what the people's faces look like, what their hair looked like. I can't tell you anything. I can tell you where I went. I can tell you what I did. I could possibly tell you what I wore, but I can't tell you everything that's going on around me. And especially if you're just an eyewitness that witnessed it, not that it happened to you. Because the thing about trauma sometimes may cause you to remember it a little bit more. But if you just saw it happen and you're trying to recall it multiple times over and over again, it's hard to remember exactly what you saw. And another big issue is race, cross-racial identification. A lot of times, a lot of people have not been in close proximity of people of other races than them, and so they may misidentify a person. They may have not seen many Black people or many Asian people or many Hispanic people around where they live at or in general. They may not have seen them as often as they would someone of the same race as them, and they may misidentify that person because, yeah, he looked kind of like them. I mean, they always say that people think Black people look alike, but a lot of times when you're not in proximity or see a lot of people of a specific race and you see one and you're like, I guess, that can in your head make you think that is the person. And that is misleading because that isn't the person who did it. And a lot of times, you may look, okay, well, this person has a not so great testimony or not so great witness statement. Maybe when it gets to the jury will realize that this is kind of faulty. But the thing about the jury is they have no firsthand knowledge of what happens. And the only person who comes to them with firsthand knowledge is telling them, yeah, that's the person right there. You know what I mean? A lot of times they're like, well, why would they lie? Right? Why would they lie? I wasn't there. Who am I to say that they weren't the person? Right? And so a lot of times when it comes to eyewitness testimonies, they get believed a lot more because people think, well, why would they lie? Why would they come here and lie about a person that they don't know? Now, if it's a person they do know, sometimes they may, be a little bit of caveat there. They'd be like, I don't know. But if it's a stranger or a person that they don't know, a lot of times they wouldn't think they would lie about it. And then they believe the eyewitness testimony, even if that person isn't 100% sure. Even if it's been found that 69% of people exonerated from DNA testing has been from eyewitness testimonies. To them, it's still like, well, I still believe it, right? And then you look at the fact that even with non-DNA exonerees, there's 450 people who have been misidentified. So even if it's not by DNA exoneration, even if it's from getting more evidence, even if it's from, kind of getting a better idea of what's going on with the situation and with the case after the fact, after they were convicted, they appeal it and they get more and more evidence, and then they realize that the eyewitness testimony was wrong. It's 450 people. It's a lot. That is a lot. So that's the second one. And then the third one is one that makes me very angry, mainly because it happens a lot more than you may think, and that is false confessions. Now, if you've seen When They See Us, I did not. I'm not gonna lie, I've not seen that movie. I just don't want to cry. I don't want to watch a movie that's gonna make me cry. I don't want to watch a movie that's gonna make me angry, and that movie is going to do both of those things. I know it was well done. It's won multiple awards. I heard about the case of the Central Park Five when I was in law school. It broke my heart just hearing about it, so I can only imagine seeing it. But a lot of times people confess to stuff that they don't do. And it's been shown that more than a quarter of the 365 exonerated people in the last decade by the Innocence Project confessed to a crime that they did not commit. More than a quarter. And a lot of times it happens because police want to solve a case. And once they get a suspect that they think is guilty, they are going to pressure them to confess. Period. They use threats. They use promises. They will lie. They will do anything that they can to get someone to confess. And so statistics have proven that a lot of the times when false confessions happen, there's 3 major things that happen in the interrogation from investigators or detectives or cops, whoever is interrogating the person. The first one, they already think they're guilty. The cops will go into that investigation into that interrogation already assuming that person is guilty. They will go in, they don't want to hear anything else other than confession, and they will make sure that they get a confession. If they go in like that, 9 times out of 10, they will either get a false confession, or the perpetrator or whoever they have in there is not having a great day that day. Okay? And because what happens in step number 2 is they should subject them to accusatory interrogations that sometimes involve lies about evidence, lies about, this person said that they saw you there. This person said that you was with them when this happened. This person said, they will lie about stuff. I mean, if you watch First 48, I watch First 48 all the time. They will sit there and be like, yeah, your man done called you out, man. He said you did it. And they're like, what? You know what I mean? And then they'll make them confess. Or, there's plenty of tactics. They can say, look, we saw you on a camera. Just confess. And they ain't got no camera footage. They will lie, okay? And a lot of times they will use threats or they will use promises, either implicit or explicit. So they will be like, look, just tell us, man. It's not going to be too bad. We can give you some goods. We can help you out. We can get you better time. We can get you a good lawyer. We can do what we got to do to help you out. Just tell us you did it. Or they'll threaten you. If you don't tell us you did it, we're going to put you in solitary confinement and they ain't going to ever let you out. And we will find your family. They will do anything that they can because step 1, they already think you're you're guilty. So step 2, they're just trying to get that confession. Period. That's it. And then step 3, once they get, you say like, okay, I did it. Even if you didn't do it, even if you, what have you, they will then have you sit down and write a narrative statement, a post-admission narrative, and they will give you the facts of the case to write down. Even if you don't know the facts of the case, they will give you the facts of the case. I remember I watched a lot of true crime stuff on YouTube, so I can't remember which one it was of the people that I watched, but they were talking about a case, and I'll put the name here once I figure out who it is because I forgot the name. It was last night I watched it, and the guy was, he was a teenager. He was 17 years old, and this is back in the 60s in Chicago, and they put him through pretty much unethical, right? Like if that happened today, they would be having a horrible investigation. That whole police force would be ripped apart. But they put him through an extreme interrogation. 17-year-old boy didn't call his parents. He asked for a lawyer. They didn't give him a lawyer. They put him through a ringer of interrogation. He finally confessed. And when he was supposed to come and sign his narrative statement, they had the journalists there and they had the media there, all these people there. And they were asking him, well, why did you do it? What did you do? And he could not answer any questions because he didn't know the facts of the case. And he still was in jail. He died in jail. I guess I put the name here so you can look it up. It was extremely upsetting. I mean, the boy was 17 years old. And they put him through all of that to get a confession out of him that wasn't even true. And he didn't even know the facts of the case. He didn't even know what happened. He didn't even know who one of the victims was. And he went to jail and died in jail. So when people tell you, criminals shouldn't have these rights. They shouldn't be able to do this. They shouldn't be. If you were in jail, you're a bad person. You shouldn't have the right to do this. You shouldn't have the right to do that. And a lot of times, even though these people get exonerated, it takes a lot sometimes to get this off of their record. Because I've known plenty of people who got found not guilty of a case after the fact and after an appeal, and it's still on their record. It's upsetting because this idea of people are criminal just because they go to jail. Just because they go to prison, that's because they were on death row. I mean, some of these people were on death row. Could have been murdered, could have been killed. I've heard plenty of stories from people. The Innocence Project, when I was in law school, they came to school, they would bring people and they would tell us about how they spent 30, 40 years in jail on death row. And we're innocent. They knew they were innocent the whole time. Nobody wants to listen to them. And either they had... And the other 3 is government misconduct. That is a big one. If you watch Just Mercy, the movie about Brian Stevenson, who was the leader of the Equal Justice Initiative, he was representing somebody out of Alabama who was on death row. There was really no evidence. but the government wanted him to go to jail for it. The district attorney was not trying to hear anything else. He was perfectly fine with the fact that they put somebody in jail that may be innocent. They had no real care about it. They just were trying to put somebody in jail for the crime because people were upset about it. There was no evidence. It's at the pressure to convict somebody. And it happens a lot. Especially in places where, you know, there's still some notions about certain kinds of people. And juries will just go off of those notions. Or snitches. Snitches are a lot of the reason why a lot of people end up in jail, because they will say, oh, I know something about this case. If you let me out, I'll tell you about it. And then they will just snitch on somebody. And then somebody ends up in jail because we got this person saying you did it. They said they was there with you. They say they saw you did it. That's pretty much either an eyewitness or I heard, she said, she said type way of putting somebody in jail. Or, sadly, this happens, bad lawyering. You just have a bad lawyer. I don't remember where, I want to say it was one of the people who came from the Innocence Project who talked about the fact that his lawyer fell asleep during his trial. Bruh. You would have the biggest misconduct case in the history of misconduct cases if that was me or somebody I knew. Look, fell asleep. Like this, like bad lawyering unfortunately happens a lot. There are some people that just don't care. They're just trying to collect the check. They think of you as a number of somebody who they got cases they gotta get through and you gotta pay them and that's it. Or they're overworked and they don't have the time and capacity to take care of the case that they should. But I say that to say, like, you know, there's always a story to how certain people get where they are. There are some people who are just malicious criminals, and that is definitely a population that, you know, we can discuss in a different time. There are also people who just have really bad luck, really bad circumstances, really bad things that happen that cause them to have to spend years and years in prison, and they're innocent. And take into consideration that jail is supposed to be rehabilitative. So the fact that we think that they're horrible, disgusting people even after they come out of jail is a talk we probably need to have eventually. But this, like I said, this is something I'm passionate about. I'm trying to keep it as short as I possibly can and not ramble for 20 minutes like I did yesterday. But if you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to share this to somebody who you think needs to hear this, share it. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can put them in the comment section below. If you haven't subscribed already, you know, I've been doing this every day for a month thing for like 19 days. I missed one day. You know, I'm trying. Trying to give you what you want. And if you do have any suggestions, if you have anything that you want to hear about that I haven't talked about, if you have anything that you think that, you want me to research into, hit them in the comments. I definitely take requests because everything comes off the top of my head, and sometimes I don't be thinking about anything. It's just blank space in there. So if you got any suggestions, put them in the comments, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.